thanks for joining us. For those that are in the audience, I'll give you just a setup here. This came out of conversations Rob and I have been having over the last couple of years, and we're really good friends in Boston. And we both believe in a couple things, which is give more than you get, be as helpful as possible, try to connect people and bring founders and funders together, because when you do that, really good things happen. And we talk every week, and what seems to happen is every time we talk, we just start riffing on what we're seeing in the ecosystem, whether that's founders we're meeting, what trends are happening, who's getting funded. And then one day, Rob just said to me, this is gold. We should do a podcast on this with just us talking about the ecosystem and what's happening. So that's where Vibes and Ventures comes from.
The audience will tell us if it's gold or not.
Mr. Snyder.
They're going to let us know. They're going to say, I see Sean. What's Sean doing up there? Holy cow.
So Michael is like, I'm getting Sean on the pod to make sure nothing goes wrong.
Sean's here as our angel. He's our angel, trying to make sure that we don't get too messed up. As my lighting just keeps leaving, I'm in the witness protection program now. I do have a voice distorter. If I could figure out my soundboard, and it would sound and look like I'm in a witness protection program, which is probably where I belong. Honestly, these are usually sessions over a beverage, an adult beverage, or when Steve is at the gym doing his cardio, and he hates doing cardio. And so he'll just be like, Rob, can I call you? And I'm like, yeah, of course. And then we just talk and talk. And we were like, you know what? At some point, we should just let people listen to these conversations, because sometimes good things come out of them. Sometimes not, but we'll figure it out. And there's only 10, 12 people, so we're all good. Do you want to kick off, Steve, with what you're thinking about this week and talking about? We've been riffing a lot on the text thread.
Yeah, it's do you want to start with my three things, or do you want to just go off of what's hot on my mind?
I mean, your three things are probably fire.
They're all right. So my three things, we were talking about this. What are the top three things you've been hearing about? And, Rob and I, we sometimes agree, sometimes disagree on this stuff. So the first thing I will pull up here, and let me just get the screen. Give me 2 seconds, because we don't always do a great job of sharing here. Entire screen. Boop.
How does Sean get better looking every time we see him, too? That's what I want to know.
It's kind of ridiculous. So if you can see my screen, right, Rob?
Yeah, I can see it. It looks great.
So the first thing I want to talk about is Bitcoin. I was I wouldn't say early adopter. I got into Bitcoin in 2018, which was earlier than most. And then everybody told me I was an idiot. And then when it went to 20,000, when it went to 65,000, I was a hero. Then it went back to 15, I was a zero. And then last night it went to 103,000. It's at 99,000 today. I don't think I'm either of those, but I think this is an inflection point in just an asset class that has been growing at 100% year over year. And people had said was going to die 20 times. And now you've got, literally, I was watching today on CNN and CNBC, Elon and Vivek were in Washington talking about the new Doge agency that they're going to build. And they were talking about digital currencies and that they're going to pass legislation to, I would say, to bring a little, get rid of some of the chaos as it goes to digital assets. So this was a pretty big moment. So that's sort of the first thing on my mind, Rob, that just hit, because last night all my crypto dudes were just blowing up my phone about it's happened.
Yeah, Kim called me and she's like, can you do something to silence Steve's phone? Because all these guys keep texting him. They're all at Art Basel.
And it was 10 o'clock at night too. It was annoying.
They're texting him from Art Basel, and they're leaving voice messages, and it's just really, it's chaotic in the home right now. I was like, I can't do anything about that, Kim. But I do think the general feeling in the air is that there's going to be less regulation. Crypto is one of the areas where, you can call it what it is, but it's been sort of politicized in a lot of ways where they've gone out of their way to sort of restrict the growth of the industry, the vertical, and what have you. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't have a magic ball. I think I go from being very smart to very foolish at a pace that's nauseating, especially for my wife. But I do think it looks like there's a lot more open space for that vertical, for lots of different types of coins to come through, and utilities and all that. There's going to be a lot of funding going into the space, and I don't think it's a bad thing. It's another evolution, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. It is what it is. But I do think most people will have some holdings in crypto, whether it's Bitcoin or ETH or you name it, they're going to have something. Or the Doge. I mean, how hilarious is it that the Doge comes up again? It's almost like the simulation must be real, because now the Doge is, a Department of Government Efficiency, which is hilarious. That Elon's been pumping that coin for years, and now it's actually going to be a thing. So
I think the fact that they made the agency the shit coin that he's been pumping for years is absolutely unbelievable.
Unbelievable. I like the fact that they named an expiration date for the Doge too. I mean, they tweeted out yesterday there's an expiration date for it, and like, what department in government have we ever had that has existed to not exist? And like,
right.
Man, what a change in like thought process and also like actual process. And I think like, well, let's see what happens. I think the general, that kind of gets onto my first thing, which is sort of, I'm not going to share any information on it or screen on it, but I've been talking to a lot of VCs and a lot of founders, and just sort of getting a sense of where do you think things are going and why. And I think there's a lot of optimism right now, maybe warranted, maybe not warranted, but there's a lot of optimism about the directionality of things. If I've said it once, I've said it a million times. Economy is the movement of money, and that people don't feel like there's a directionality of where things are going, then money stops moving and tends to stand still. And for the last 3 years, it's felt like hasn't been high conviction into which direction things are going to be going in. And so money has stopped flowing the way it has, and it's slowed down a lot of things, especially in the startup ecosystem, funding of funds, funding of companies. And so I think if there's optimism about the directionality of where the general economy is going, that has a lot of impact on the access to capital for founders and funders, especially.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really put your finger on why it happened, but it's definitely happened, Rob. I mean, like, you and I live in this ecosystem every day, and all I know is this: rounds are taking longer than they've ever taken. They're taking 6 to 8 months instead of 3 to 4 months. The number of conversations the founders having to have to raise that round has gone from maybe 100 to 150 to over 200. And it's and the rounds are smaller at lower valuations. So, I mean, those are just facts over the last 24 months. Now, you could argue why that happened, but that's what's happening. I mean, like you, I look at 20 deals a week. I meet with 1,000 founders a year. I mean, that's just what's happening. And I raise money for people for a living. So, and the founders haven't all of a sudden started to suck. It's just that the market had shifted. And I think that there is this swell coming of what's going to happen next. So I think that's exciting.
I mean, this is speaking to it. I don't know if anybody's following Peter Walker on X, but you probably should. He puts out a lot of good information and data. And this is one that caught my eye. It was like the time between VC rounds. So you're seeing like the 2-year period from the price of the C to Series A, and then you're talking about two and a half years from Series A to Series B, and almost the same amount of time from B to C. And so those are a little longer than they tended to be. I mean, that's been going up. You can see on the graph. You can just, if you look, I'm not even great at data. You can just sort of see how that time has just been going up and up and up. And that starts in this is a graph from the last 2 years, so 2019 to Q3 of 2019 to Q3 of 2024. And so if I'm looking at that, I'm saying, it's gone a little bit longer from C to Series A. I think the metrics have gone a lot higher for founders as far as like what fund managers want to see from a traction standpoint, from customer standpoint, revenue, all that. That's gone. Those expectations have gone up, but the time period hasn't gone up as much as Series A to Series B. Again, those metrics have changed significantly. But if you look at that arrow, I mean, that thing's a hockey stick up and to the right. B to C is sort of a little more similar to that C to Series A. But I think it's pretty interesting, and it speaks to like what you're talking about. Like, hey, it's taken a long time. We're coming out of an era where funding, where we went from getting funding on an idea and on a text thread, you get 24 hours to respond or you're out. I got more than a few of those texts back when they were printing money. And it's gone from that to taking months and months and months for good founders with great companies to raise their rounds. And so I would love it if we did yin and yang and go left, right. But I guess in the innovation space, it's always going to be a little bipolar, and you just kind of like have to enjoy the highs and ride out the lows, and know if it's going really well at some point, that's going to come to an end. So you have to take advantage while the money's flowing, and when it's not, you have to recognize that the market conditions have changed and figure out a plan to keep growing, even though you're slowing down your spend.
Sure, makes total sense. That's okay. I mean, it's good stuff, man. All right, so second thing that I'm thinking about this week, I'll share my screen again just to give everybody some context here. Let me just pull this up. This is a picture of the Techstars Fall Cohort in Boston, which is, I'm a mentor in residence there. I've been doing this a couple of years. It is absolutely one of the biggest blessings in my life that I get to mentor 11 companies that are going through Techstars, which is, I would say, one of the top 5 accelerators in the world. Some would argue what number within the top 5, but it's definitely one of the top 5. And the Boston cohort has demo day next week in Boston. And for those that can't attend firsthand, it's being held at Google. There's actually going to be a live stream, which I will post in the room chat right now for anybody that would like to check it out. I just did. These companies are amazing. In a lot of cases, Rob, it's founders getting opportunities to get funded and go through this accelerator that might not have an opportunity otherwise. So, for example, the cohort, it's such a great mix. The cohort is half first-time founders, half repeat founders.
That's good.
Half women, half men. There's 3 immigrant founders. There's everything under the sun you could possibly want in it. And it's a real cross-section of different types of founders. There's ed tech, fintech, health tech, AI, everything under the sun. And I just think it's what should happen in venture, that all different types of companies get opportunities. And they're doing their demo day next week. For those that would like to check it out, there's a live stream that's going to be broadcast around the world. And I know Rob will be there supporting founders as he always does, and so will I.
I mean, I'm surprised they didn't ask me to do an intro. I have a great announcer voice when I need to, but I guess next year, maybe next year. I'll hit up Jen and be like, next year, you got to give me a shot at the mic. But I guess they have you and Aiden. It's like, do you really need me? Probably not.
It should be fun. And
over there.
It should be fun. And the after party is even more fun.
Jonathan invited me. Like I said, if I don't have to go to the other thing, I'm going to go to the Techstars one. I skipped out of the last year, and I was filled with regret. I went to something else. I was like, this is terrible. I should just stay with the Techstars crew.
The funny thing is, when you go, it's at Google, and Google has like this maniacal security. Like, you got to bring a government issued ID. There's a retina scan, full body scan. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Like, no one's attacking Google.
Sample of your DNA. You sign away all your legal rights and capacity while you're on-prem, and you're fine. There's nothing wrong. There's nothing to see here. It's all good. I've been in worse buildings, to be honest. I've been given the 9th degree more than a few times. I go around to a lot of buildings as more pre-pandemic when companies would want me to come by the office. But I've still been through almost every building in Boston, and that one's not bad. It's not great, but it's not bad. There's a lot worse. So what's
your number 2 thing?
Well, I'm thinking about it, and I'm gonna put it up here. Hold on. I always get nervous with the shared screen, like I have something bad on the other thing.
Hey, Sean, you know something? While he's pulling it up, one thing we got to get is when you share the screen, you lose your video. Maybe having the video window at the bottom. If you're a participant, you could see it, but if you're the person sharing your screen, you actually can't see what you're the other person, and it's kind of a stupid thing. It's kind of fucking annoying.
I definitely know what you mean. Yeah, that's literally why I have a second monitor over here. But yeah, I think there is.
Job.
That's also.
I have a second monitor too. What's going on with Steve? Boomer Steve over there doesn't have a second screen.
No, I'm a one-screen dude. That's it.
No way.
What I was gonna say though is there's actually a way to do picture-in-picture to where you could have your video, but it's a little technical. I could show you another time.
That'll be an offline session with us, Sean.
Absolutely.
I love
I
how
was-
Michael sent Sean here to like monitor the two of us and make sure we don't fuck anything up. It's awesome.
I don't
Yeah,
think
that's
Michael likes
actually why I'm
me-
here.
He doesn't want to be in the room with us either, Steve. Like he saves that for like the rarest of
No, right now,
occasions.
Sean is going. I need to reevaluate my life and do anything else right now.
I reevaluate my life on a daily basis. I think that's a good best practice. So I was actually curious about your take on this one because I've never been like a master of valuations, and so
Right.
can you see that well enough?
I can,
or
yep.
do I need- Okay.
No, I'm looking at it.
So yeah. So take a peek at this. It's like the pre-seed, seed, all the way up to Series C, and what the percentiles of companies and where they fall in their pre and post the post money valuation, cash raise, and the dilution. I thought it was really interesting. I wanted to see this compared to historically where this lines up.
Rob, can I ask a question? So
Yeah.
if I'm looking at pre-seed, because I play predominantly at the pre-seed level, is this
Yeah.
telling me 70? Is this reading that 75% of the companies raise at a 14 million valuation and only 25%
the
raise at a
opposite.
6? The opposite.
the opposite.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got okay. So the most common valuation is 6 million and the most uncommon is 14 million.
Right.
Which makes total sense to me, by the way. I mean, if
The middle would be the 50 percentile would be the middles. The middles at
would be
10
10
mil.
million.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. In the last 30 days, I've looked at almost 100 deals. Maybe one or two are at 10 or above. Everything else is below 10. Everything else is below 10. I've got companies coming out of Techstars that are over $1 million of revenue that are raising at 6 and 7 million at the pre-seed level. Now, this could be skewed because of the West Coast. There is always a West Coast bias.
I was gonna say, like, you have to almost put a disclaimer, like the Silicon Valley is always gonna skew the numbers upwards to, and I think that the market you and I play in tends to be a little bit more conservative, and so that's gonna.
I call
that's
it Boston
obviously-
Brahmin.
I mean, there's definitely some interesting Boston data. This isn't parsing through it, but I would love to see a head-to-head of like what's the Silicon Valley percentiles and what.
I think the two
valuation
things that
includes
make
there.
it higher, Silicon Valley and AI. Those are the two things that probably skew the numbers right now.
Yeah, I think so. Did you listen to the Mark Andreessen pod with Joe Rogan this week?
No, I didn't. I heard it was pretty good.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, the thing you have to parse through that's really tough is like he's one of these guys who like sees the future, and so like I think some of the things he says you sort of might be getting in between the space of like what was actually said to him and what he inferred or read into, because he's the sort of person who says somebody says something is like, oh, I can kind of like see where you're going with this and then presents it as if that was what the intention was. I don't know if that's the most accurate, but I thought it was really interesting conversation. But I think that the interesting thing on this graph, which is pretty uniform and obvious to the eye, even to my not so wise eyes, is the larger the post money valuation, the higher the dilution.
Correct. Interesting. They're giving away a lot more of their company.
Yeah, I mean, for not that much more cash, if you think about it, you're like, well, if you're raised at a 6 million post money valuation, you're raising 600K, you're getting 8% dilution. You double that money raised just a little bit more, you're giving up 20% at the pre-seed round. I mean, I just don't see where you're gonna have some hard conversations about around this, Series B, around the founders not having enough skin in the game at that point.
I always get nervous when I see a company that when they get to A, if they're at the A round and they own less than 50% of the company, that's a huge red flag for me.
How many is that you're seeing right now that are like that?
Well, first they have to get to A. But
Yeah,
I would
that's
say
what I'm saying.
probably about 30-40% of the companies have given away too much in the early rounds. You know what it is,
Wow.
Rob? It's what you just said. They're raising too much at too high a valuation too early, and it crushes them when they get to A and B rounds.
Yeah.
My favorite mantra with my founders, and it sounds counterintuitive, is raise less and grow more. Raise less
Yeah.
than you think at a lower valuation, get good people in, and grow more organically, especially in the early stages.
Is it a culture thing where people like want to raise a large round? They think there's like is there some sort of clout that they get from raising a larger round? Like I don't understand. Like from my perspective, it would be very similar to yours. Like I'm going to raise less, and then I'm going to try to maximize the amount of growth I'm able to inject in the company through that round. But I want to keep as much, want to have that balance. Like I don't want to get too diluted too early on.
I think
wonder-
it's like anything else, Robert. I think it's signaling. Everybody wants to signal that they're, that they're the startup, they're hot, and that none of that matters. You know what matters?
No.
Staying alive, actually getting to the next round, getting to that inflection point. Like I have too many founders that raised 2 on 20 way too early, and now they're out of business. Because when they went back for that next round and wanted a $30 or $40 million valuation, the market said you don't have the revenue to support it.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it's really interesting. Like if you start chasing the wrong metrics at the wrong time, it can just undermine your mission completely. And so if you're just thinking about like, well, how much can I say? Like when I'm at a cocktail party, how do I want to be able to throw out a big number for a post-money valuation. And I want people to like talk about how well I'm doing. It's like, well, I don't know if that's the thing you should be chasing. And the thing I would be chasing is like, what's the most efficient amount of capital and how much money am I going to have, how much of the company am I going to have to give up to get the amount of capital I need to get to the next marker, to get to the next place where I can go raise my round, go raise the next round. Or at some point, like get off the roller coaster and be able to run and operate a company and get it to either IPO or get it bought. I don't know. And I think some of it, I mean, have you seen more companies go out of business because they raise too little money, or companies that get over their skis raise too much money and end up going out of business?
The main reason I've seen founders go out of business, because I've had this happen twice in the last year.
Yeah.
Founders give up. They just quit. It's not a money thing. They don't run out of money. They just decide they don't want to do it anymore. It's too hard. I've had that happen twice in the last year.
Whoa.
Founder just calls me one day. He's like, one of my founders called me 4 months ago. He's like, my CTO quit today. Just got too tired.
No way.
Yep. Walked away. Went to go to business school. Wanted to go to Virginia Business School. Yep.
I don't know if I have it up. Man, that's sad. I hate to see somebody get
Happens,
up in their dreams like that.
Rob, it happens more than you think. Founders, it's, listen, everybody in the world wants to be an entrepreneur and talk about being an entrepreneur, and half the people do not have the balls to do the work. They just don't. It's a difference between entrepreneurs and wantrepreneurs. There is a massive difference between the two.
Look at this one. Seed to Series A, 50% of the companies make it. That number shocked me just a little. Is that?
I actually think that's high.
I thought so too.
Yeah. Let me see. No, I guess that's right. So I've got, if I look at my own book, Rob, I've got 66 portfolio companies and 35 have made it to Series A. That makes sense then. So I'm about what? 6 divided by 2. Yeah. So 33 would be 50%. So I'm just over 50%. I guess that's about right.
Yeah.
I thought I was an outlier though. Like, cause when I say 35 of my 66 have made it to A, people are like, holy shit, that's unbelievable.
For the eagle-eyed viewers at home, you'll notice this is another Peter Walker slide. Highly recommend. Great guy to kind of get some of these. The data kind of speaks for itself in some instances, and that's one where you're like, man, that's the interesting thing you brought up is like they just don't want to do it anymore. And people don't talk about that, but that is a real thing where like entrepreneurs, founders, and fund managers are humans, and I always talk about the number of no's someone can take before they can't take anymore. And there's like this idea of like a fighter gets punched too many times and they get glass jaw, and they're not in the fight game anymore because they can't take a punch anymore. And I've thought a lot about this idea that founders and fund managers they have so many no's before they give up.
So Rob,
There
you,
were
I
so
mean,
many-
you know Christina from Edify. You went to her event in Austin last year that I ran,
Yeah.
and she's one of the strongest founders I've backed in the last 5 or 6 years.
Mhm.
And she raised around $1.5 million. Got the 2 co-founders of TripAdvisor to lead it. I'm in the round. A lot of great people, and everybody. She's getting a ton of press right now because of how great she's doing. And what people don't realize, because I was there every day with her, it took 7 months and 225 conversations to raise that round.
Yeah, that no, by the way, doesn't always. It's not always an investor no. I think that's the easy one to point at and be like, well,
Yeah.
investor no. That's the one you're worried about, but it's the customer no, it's the employee no, it's the board member no.
It's all the. So there's a post there, Rob. It's the nose. That's it.
That's the thing that'll kill you. The thing that's going to kill your company is your inability to take no for an answer. And your inability to stay in there when you're getting told no a million times.
My best
that's a-
founders
that's a-
understand that no gets you to the next yes. It just does.
Man, I don't. We need to get somebody on here that takes an unreal amount of no's and ask them, how did you get so good at taking no?
I know. Isn't it amazing? So speaking,
It is
of, you were
amazing.
talking about doing it the wrong way or maybe taking too much capital. So here's a good example. This is my third thing of
Yeah.
someone that I met this week. I'll just throw it into the chat. There's a company called Cordia AI. I was introduced to them by one of my current portfolio founders that says, Steve, you got to meet these guys. These 2 guys built another company, raised a bunch of money, exited successfully, massive exit, and they were going to retire. And then everything
Wow.
with AI happened, and some of their old customers and friends that run call centers came to them and said, we got this massive problem in call centers, which is everyone says we should replace our 300 or 400 agents, but we're not ready to do that. Like AI just started yesterday. We're not ready to do that, but we need help, and we want to figure out how to do that with AI. So these 2 guys go out and code a bunch of LLM models to do not replace the agents, but to do a co-pilot with them that will listen to the call that the agent's on and start coaching the agent through the call, and it ties into their CRM and all their pricing, so it can start to walk the agent through. And then when the call's over, the co-pilot actually gives them a score and grades them, so it helps the agent get better. So instead of replacing the employee, it's helping the employee be more productive. These guys went out, built it 3 months ago, got their first 2 pilots up. They have $20,000 in monthly recurring revenue already, and they have raised no money. Totally the right way to do it.
This is on trend, though. This is on trend. So I spent a ton of time in like the AI circles, but all the conversations have shifted from AI replacing the workforce to AI being a tool that empowers the workforce. So the future of work is every employee is leveraging AI in their role, some model, some thing to help them do their job better than they'd be able to do it by themselves. And it's like, okay, so that is what it's like. I always say this is the wrong way. That's a scope. I can never say that word. The doctors and nurses use to monitor the heart rate. It's a highly effective tool that helps them do their job. And I think that's where AI is going. So I also was having a weird conversation with somebody this week that's like the companies that are front end using AI that like as a barrier between themselves and their customers, they're missing the mark. People want to interact with people, but empowering those agents that are interacting with your customers to be able to leverage AI to do the thing your customers need you to do, that's really where the magic's going to happen, because you still have that human to human element that people crave, but you don't have but you have the efficiency of the AI. So I think we'll probably see some differing strategies around where people are automating and how they're automating, but the trend seems to be going towards man and machine versus like one or the other, which I think is great. I did this one's a little off topic, but you started talking about people quitting, and I love this one. I thought of it when I saw. I didn't send it to you. I should have sent it to you because you love this stuff. This one's great.
You see, if I change your life, you'll find a way. If not, you'll find it. That's fantastic. That's a good one.
Isn't that right?
That.
Yeah.
By the way, this is what Rob and I do half the day: is send text and DMs and Twitter handle stuff back and forth. Happens a lot.
Yeah, I think that's real though, isn't it? It feels real.
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
think
It's
there's, yeah, go ahead.
no, it's just there's no room for whining, man. Like somebody was talking about they don't like to surround themselves with whiners today on Twitter. I'm like, less whining, more doing. I have no time. Just don't have any time.
Man, that's really good. I haven't thought about the whiners, but like they definitely, I mean, that's an energy vampire, right? They want to bring you into their little spiral of nothingness.
I got no
spiral of
time.
bad
I
thing.
got no time. And the good news is, and the advantage of hanging out with early stage founders, Rob, they don't have any time for it. They have no time for it. These folks work 15, 16, 18 hours a day. They have no time for someone whining. Are you insane? Most of my early,
question
super
about
early
that.
founders are living on ramen and trying to pay mortgages, and like they have no time for whining.
I have a question about that. So all
Yeah.
the studies, are the studies fake? Is going to be the headline. All the studies show after 50 hours that your work is actually making you less good at your role. Is that
Yeah.
Does that include founders, or is that just like for normal 9-to-5ers? Is the study like one of these studies that gets paid for by the unions to keep people from overworking their employees? Like, I don't know where I land on that, but I honestly, I'm not sure. I could be swayed either way. I don't have a strong opinion, but I'm wondering what your thought process is around that.
Well, I'll give you a good example.
Yeah.
You and I'll use you as an example. You and I
Yeah.
work incredibly hard. We work an incredible amount of hours, but
Yeah.
we do it in a way that in a lot of cases doesn't feel like work because we're doing it with people we care about. We're doing it in a way that works for us. And like me, you do 10 different activities in a day. I don't sit at a computer all day and do one thing. For an hour, I'm talking to founders. The next hour, I'm talking to funders. Then I'm going to an event. Then I'm going for a walk and talk. Then I'm talking to a banker. Like it's all different. There's no 2 hours in my day that are the same. And because of that, I almost think of what we do, Rob, and my work day and my work week is a bunch of mini sprints. I don't do anything
Mini
typically for
sprints?
more than an hour or two. Mini sprints, man.
That's
They're mini, like building a product.
That's generous when it comes to me. I would say I think that's right. If you love the thing you're doing and it doesn't feel like work, you probably can extend that window out. And if you're doing things that are not super similar a lot, then you probably have like a more of a window to operate. And then if you're, on the spectrum and all, you probably get a couple extra points there. Like it's probably different for most people. But I do worry about the guys and gals that are out there building, and the one thing that gets me concerned are the ones that neglect the things that got them to the dance. And what I mean by that is they spend all their time and energy and resources on building the thing, and they stop doing the things that created the opportunity to build the thing. So let's say you're a mountain climber, and you build this company, but you stop mountain climbing because you're like, hey, I'm on mission. I got to be solely focused on this. I don't have time to mountain climb anymore. What's the probability that you're going to still have the same outputs, and then the outputs aren't going to become stale because you don't have any new inputs? Because you're getting farther away from the thing. It's like a band. They're not as good as they get older because when their first album came out, they're living in a van down by the river, and then then all of a sudden they blow up and they have everything they could ever want and need. They go to write another album and they're not the same person. So they're trying to put themselves back. Like, what was it like to be poor and have nobody want me and like show up to shows and nobody cared about what I was doing? Like to live an anonymous lifestyle. They're almost like trying to manufacture that person and like then create something through that. And I worry sometimes that, especially at the early stage, if you're spending all your time and energy on the thing, that your inputs can get stale, and a result of that can be that the outputs get stale.
Rob, are you a fan of?
There's times to walk.
Are you? So speaking of walking, are you a fan of Naval Ravikant?
Yeah.
So Naval, for those that don't know, Naval is the founder of AngelList. He's probably one of the best tech thinkers, I'd call him, in the world. The way he thinks about life.
I don't think you need to put tech in front there. I think you just say one of the better thinkers.
He just is. The way he comes about life, and I've adopted a lot of his principles. This is one that he retweeted this a few weeks ago. I'll put it in the chat for everybody. He has a philosophy that no meetings before 11 a.m. I've adopted this. I don't do any meetings before 10 a.m. No meetings when emails or calls will do. Don't schedule calls or texts, coordinate them all on the fly. Cram all meetings into 2 days a week. One-on-ones should be a 30-minute walking meeting because meetings are the death of productivity. I don't do all of that, but I have a lot of that worked into my schedule. And a lot of what you and I do outside of scheduling this pod, a lot of it's on the fly, Rob. Think of
It's
it
always
on
on
our
the
best.
fly.
It's all on the fly. It's, hey, do you have 5 minutes? Hey, let's do a text thread. I'm at the gym and I'm like, do you have 15 minutes to do this call while I'm in the middle of cardio? All the best stuff that I do ends up happening on the fly. And I think this is just a reminder of it.
Can you send that to me? Because I think I want to reorganize some of like my calendar around like those principles. Because like, look, he's better.
I just texted to you.
Thank you. He's a much better operator than I am, and I probably have no hope of being as efficient or effective as he has. But if I can get closer, that's a nice jump forward. And so if he's doing things and he's like, hey, I found this works, like I'll trial it. Like heck yeah, why wouldn't I? Like that'd be a fool not to. And I remember at my first encounter with him, I was on some podcast or something, and I remember, or maybe it was one of his books. Did he write a book?
Yeah.
I think I like audiobook to one of his books, and I was like, man, he's deep. I mean, he's deep.
He does
He's real
a
deep.
thing with his co-founder of AngelList, Nevi, where they do this whole thing about the success in life, and it's all about how to have success in relationships, business, money, entrepreneurship. It's pretty cool. It's a whole tweet storm that they did, and they put it into a one big podcast. It was awesome.
That's awesome. So I mean, so I'll start incorporating some of that. I need a little bit more. I do too many meetings, so and if I put them together in a couple of days, that would probably make me a little bit more effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are my
crazy.
3 things, man. We said we want to keep this to like a half hour at like 35 minutes. Not bad.
Oh wow. We could keep
Pretty good.
going. We can stop recording and just keep going.
You and I will talk for like 17 hours if you let us.
Oh my God, the Joe Rogan Experience has got nothing on us.
No, that's my wife will shoot.
We'll set some world records for the longest, most drawn out, hilarious. Well, I don't know if we'll be the funniest, but we'll have some moments. I liked your 3 things.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. I like your. They're great. It's just top of mind stuff that's all happened in the last like 48 hours. I was at Techstars yesterday. I met that AI company yesterday. I'm like, these are just cool things going on in the ecosystem. I hope that's what we bring to this. It's just what's happening, what's fresh, what's new. And the Bitcoin thing happened last night. So I'm like, these are all fresh in my mind today.
Where do you think? Sorry, I know we're going to say we're out of time. Where do you think that that Bitcoin is at the end of 2025?
I say the same thing I've said every year since I started buying it. I have no idea, and I don't care because I'm not selling it.
Wow, I love that. But I want to do something. So we're going to keep doing this. And I want to look back and be like, hey, where do you think it was? Where do you think it will be?
End of 25, I think honestly it's going to be bumpier than people think. I think I could see it going to 110, 120, then pulling back to 50. I could see a major pullback. I mean, it's what people hate about Bitcoin is it's not linear. It went 15 to 65 to 15 to 100. It's all over the place. So traders hate it. It's impossible to predict. But you can, if you study it, and I'm anal retentive, so I study it. You study the cycles. It's every time a halving happens, 8 to 12 months later, it rips and then it retracts. Like it's followed the same pattern 6 times for the halvings. So it's not really hard to know.
Originally?
My lowest buy ever, I think, was 8,000.
Is that when you got in originally? Was 8,000 or was that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know
my
Babak?
friend of mine got in at $8. He was in the mountain states.
Yeah, Babak Kia got in at 10. He's got at 10. I was like, gosh, you must. And he never sold any of them. He's like, no way. So
my friend got in at $8. He exited at 18,000 and started a venture fund.
Who do you think? Nice. Who do you think in your network has the like who bought in at like $1?
I've met. You ever hear of Charlie Shrem?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I met Charlie at the Basel conference and the Bitcoin conference a couple times. I mean, Charlie was super early. Charlie was even pre-Mt. Gox days. He went to jail because he was doing Bitcoin trades for people that were doing nefarious things. He wasn't actually doing the nefarious things, but because he moved their Bitcoin, he was liable and went to prison, I think for 15 months or something.
But what did
Charlie
he get
was
at?
in probably sub $1.
if I had to bet, the person in my, and I don't know if he even has any coin. Do you know Vasilios?
No.
Oh man, the CEO whisperer, Vasilios Roussos. I'll tell you how much of an OG is. His Gmail is vasilios@gmail.com. So
Okay.
okay, not an uncommon name internationally. He has vasilios@gmail.com. My bet is that dude was in at like $3. That's why I'm gonna text him. He'll get back to me in 3 months because that's what he does. He's like one of these guys who doesn't look at his phone for long periods of time, and then I'll let you know. So what are you gonna say? Like pin a number on this, like December, at last pod in December 2025. What do you think it's gonna be? This is not investment advice, by the way. We're just for our own fun. That's what we're doing this for. What do you think it'll be at?
I would say somewhere between 125, 150, probably. I don't think it's going to be like what people think. They think it's going to go from 100 to 300. I think it's going to bounce around, but it'll probably end up
Give me a number.
125, 150.
Play a game.
All right. I'll go 140.
I had 157 in my head for some reason, so I'm going to write this down. You're 140. I'm 157. We're not going to do Prices Right rules. Closest to the pin. And the farthest from the pen has to buy the round of drinks.
Totally fine. Totally fine.
Friendly gentleman's bet. No interfering by getting your rich friends to buy more Bitcoin. That's the one caveat. I won't call my rich friends. You won't call your.
I should stop the text thread I got going right now, then.
Dude, I know you're out there tweeting up people and be like, "Hey, I need you to get it to 140 and then halt."
Oh, stop buying, sell.
Sean's laughing at us, but we want to know what Sean's number is too. Sean, hop on real quick. Tell us what your number is.
Sean, you got a number?
I never even thought about 2025. That was kind of a weird one. I've seen all the memers throwing around 500K for 2030. So I'm going to kind of change things up and stick with that. I don't think the memers are ever wrong when it comes to crypto. They've shown their force. So that's what I'm sticking at. 500K for 2030, not for 2025.
I don't think that's unrealistic. In crypto land, that's a lifetime.
100%.
That's
2025.
More havoc.
I'd say it'll probably shoot up to the 115s probably pretty soon, and it'll hold. I don't know if it'll pass 125 before. If it's a spike like this at the end of the year, maybe hitting 140. But yeah, I think it'll probably hold around like 120s, 115s, dip to whatever. But yeah.
Say it with your chest. What's the number?
End of 2025?
Yeah.
122.
Wow. So we're on the polar opposites of this bet. Look at you, Steve. Right in the middle. You get the glory of the middle, dude.
That's it. Welcome to my life.
Man. Ancient tyranny. That's what we're looking at here. I'm getting screwed.
That's awesome. Hey, Sean, first of all, thanks for taking time out of your day, man, and being with us. We appreciate the fact that you were here to make sure that this went off smoothly.
Oh, no, this was great. Honestly, I'm super excited. I know you guys are kind of up on the air, especially with the holidays coming up on when you guys are planning on picking this back up. But yeah, I'm gonna set this up as like a recurring thing, at least monthly, just so it's present. And then we can touch base and kind of set a timeline when we
I'll
do the next
chat with
one.
Rob probably tomorrow, and we'll
we'll get the cadence down. I don't know if Thursday night's going to be the thing. I'm usually out on Thursday nights.
Okay.
We'll find a time that works. We'll do the time that works.
Thank you to everybody that joined today for our inaugural Vibes and Ventures podcast. Thanks to our buddy Sean for keeping us on the straight and narrow, and thanks to my brother from another mother, Rob Hughes. I love you, my brother.
I love you too. I don't think by the way, normalize saying I love you to the people in your life that you really love. Like, what are you doing? Just say it. The other thing is, I don't think we said anything to get us canceled, which I'm surprised and happy about. I didn't want to get canceled on our first episode. So I'm really happy about that. And so let's go for number 2. And all the people, the 10 people that were here the whole time, thank you so much. And tell your friends how stupid we are. But you'll have a memorabilia moment that you were here in the audience for the first show. So when we blow up, because we will, you'll be like, I was there, and people will like, I don't believe you. So we'll screenshot it for proof for all of you that you were actually here.
Awesome. Boys, be safe.